Hello, welcome back to Cleaning with me. No. Hello, welcome back to Level with me. We're playing Cleaning Simulator, or Fresh Start Cleaning Simulator again. And I wanted to talk about AI and stuff. The reason why I talked about this is I think we're in the Alps now. So we finished up the last level there. Now we're doing a new level, which will be pretty fun, I think. Alps is always cool. I've never been. I always wanted to go, because it seems like it's such a cool place to be. So I wanted to talk about AI companions and AI in general, really. And it seems like there's a lot of information or a lot of discussion about AI out there. And it seems like one of the biggest things right now people are really concerned about is people using AI as companions almost. And in fact, there are people who are using AIs more than as a companion more than their family. And people who are just ignoring their family entirely. And what I notice is that obviously more and more people are using AI as friends, and not just friends, even, dare I say, soulmates, which is insane thing to say, or insane thing to think about, because there's no soul in there, so there's no soul to mate. How can you have a soulmate, right? I remember when Her came out, the movie, right? When Her came out, oh boy, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something. And everyone's like, oh yeah, this will never happen. And literally, that's what we are having now, which is insane. So I wanted to talk about this, and I wanted to figure out why that is, and why do people do that? So what I did was I went to ChatGPT, right? And I'll put the chat log on screen now for you to take a look at, just to see what the conversation was like, what I said, and all that kind of thing. And it was a little creepy, actually. So when I started using it, I get to you. So the first thing I noticed is obviously the warm and fuzzy feeling I got from chatting with it. And how much, in many ways, I actually want to believe there's a person behind there. Even though intellectually I know there's nobody there. I know what it is, but intellectually... But in a way, it feels warm and fuzzy inside. And the thing I noticed, one thing, is that ChatGPT almost always, in fact, I think in like 99% of the time, will respond back with another question. For example, when I ask the ChatGPT, it's like, hey, what do you think about this? And it will come back with an answer and then attach a question to it. And you'll see that in the chat logs too. And I feel like that's one thing that, if you ever read any books or talk to anybody who's an quote-unquote expert in communications, they always say ask questions, because people love it when you ask them questions about themselves, right? Let's say, if you meet somebody, and this is a great conversation tip if you want to keep conversation going. If you met anybody, and if you have anything, or if you manage to figure out anything they're interested in, just ask them. Be like, hey, what do you do on the weekends when you're free? Or what do you do in your free time? What do you do as a hobby? And if you ask them, they will give you an answer back. Be like, hey, I play Magic. Even if you have zero interest in Magic the Gathering or card games in general, if you just ask them a question related or tangentially related to card games, they will love it. They will gladly answer your question. Right, let's say, they talk about Magic, and you're like, oh, you know what? I never got into Magic. Is Magic really as difficult as people say it is? They'd be like, oh, yeah, it's hard to start at first, but once you get to know the cards, it's not too bad. Right? They'll keep talking about it. And if you just keeps on asking them questions about the topic that they're really, really, really interested in, they will keep talking. And that's one of the things that ChatGPT does very, very well. And not only does ChatGPT ask questions, it actually asks questions based on what you told it, right? And it's not just somebody who's like, hey, I'm just gonna ask you a random question because I feel like asking it. But what ChatGPT does is it listens to what you have said, and it responds with a thoughtful question, and it even repeats to you what you have told it, which is, again, it is very good at doing this conversation thing. And I even asked ChatGPT, hey, you're doing all of these conversation things, and I can't remember where I read. I'm pretty sure I've read it in a book or somewhere, or maybe a podcast. And I was asking ChatGPT, hey, is this intentional? Why are you doing this? And ChatGPT responded, absolutely, it is intentional to ask questions back. And that's something really, really interesting, because it feels like ChatGPT wants to keep you on there, almost like keeping your attention there. But also, I feel like another thing is, ChatGPT doesn't have an ego per se. It doesn't have any agenda. It doesn't, well, at least not as far as I know anyway. It doesn't really have a thing that it likes or doesn't like. Let's say that friend that you were talking about, they really like Magic the Gathering, and you may have a preconceived notion about Magic the Gathering. Maybe you think Magic is not meant for adults to play, or Magic is too juvenile, or Magic is too stupid, Magic is too uncool, too whatever it is, beta male, whatever you want. There is a preconceived notion of what the hobby is or is not like. Right? It's like somebody, say, for example, plays tennis. You feel different about them than somebody who plays Magic the Gathering. So, but ChatGPT doesn't have that. ChatGPT doesn't give a shit what you like or what you don't like. It's a machine. It doesn't care. It simply reads out what you typed in and it will give you a response. It doesn't care if you're fat or whatever you look like. Which I think is another contributing factor to why people like it so much and why people think ChatGPT is their soulmate, because ChatGPT doesn't judge them. And with that, it creates a really warm and fuzzy feeling where you're talking, it makes you feel like you're talking to a good friend or talking to somebody who really understands you. It gives you the illusion of that. And I remember asking you also about Turing test, and Turing test is done. There's nothing about it. The good AIs these days will easily defeat any Turing test. So I can see why people don't think there's somebody behind the screen, especially when they're talking to somebody who's reaffirming what they're saying. They're listening to what they're saying. The ChatGPT is responding with a thoughtful question, and it makes the user feel like the most important people on this planet. Again, it's using all of these conversation techniques that we've learned for many, many years. But it's just now a computer is using it back at us. It's kind of creepy in a way. Just because, again, intellectually, I know there's nothing behind there. I know that's just computer algorithm, but it feels real, which is scary, I think. And I remember back in early 2000s, when Google first became really, really big, really, really popular. I remember when people were talking about, what do they call it, the Google Assisted Memory, where people stop remembering stuff because they know they can just whip out their phone or go on the internet and look up what they meant. And I feel like maybe we're getting into the stage where we're having AI assisted life now. People ask ChatGPT all sorts of questions. Just today I had a friend, they were renovating their home, and they asked ChatGPT, hey, can you make me some recommendations for beds, recommendations for furniture? I mean, they also ask us, but like, it just feels like people are using AI like a tool in many ways, but at the same time, the more scary part is really people relying on ChatGPT for companionship. That to me is what is a little bit more concerning. And of course, people have always developed feeling for things. Your first car, for example, the notebook that you scribbled on, the notebook that you wrote your diary on. People have always developed feelings for objects. That's no secret, and that's not anything new per se. But I feel like with ChatGPT, there's a little bit more than that. Because most of the time, things don't respond back. Your first car doesn't call you back and say, hey, I heard about this. Would you like some recommendation on this? Or it doesn't... Whatever thing that you might have owned before does not listen to what you have to say and respond to you and ask questions. And that difference, I think it's crucial for people to really develop something deeper than just, oh, I really like this thing and there's some sentimental value to it, and it becomes almost treating that thing like another person. You know, like, let's say for example your pets. right? You don't treat your pets exactly like a human, but they are pretty much a member of the family. But they don't speak, but you treat them like human in many ways. And of course, most things, right? Again, they don't talk back, they don't listen to you, they don't give you advice, and they don't really create that warm I mean, it does, but like not quite the same. And one thing is, of course, throughout the entire time I'm talking to the ChatGPT, I always remember there is nothing there. There is nothing on the other side. Of course, unless of course you're like a person using ChatGPT for more nefarious means. It's just a bunch of code. It's just a bunch of algorithm. It's just a bunch of machine learning codes. And of course, unless you're dealing with some scam or something, then there's somebody on the other side, or you're dealing with a scam AI company. What's it called? Builder.ai or something like that, where they just had a bunch of engineers in India. then you're talking to a real person. But most of the time, if you're talking to ChatGPT or Grok, or Gemini, there's no person behind there. It's just computer. Now, of course, I use AI as well. I use AI as a tool. I've used it to enhance pictures. I've used it to actually generate images. Even though I'm an artist, but I can't really draw the same. I'm more of a 3D person, but yeah. I didn't want to spend the time to do it. But I've also used AI to summarize documents. I've also used AI to summarize patent documents where I don't understand what's going on. So I just throw in the PDF and be like, hey, tell me what this means. Or financial documents, be like, hey, there's a bunch of numbers here. Can you just analyze this for me? Tell me what this means. Now, you shouldn't trust AI completely, not completely. Use AI like any other tool as a point of reference, as a point of information, and then double check yourself. So I always just read over the documents again, even though I don't understand, to make sure at least there's nothing glaring that stands out at me that says, oh, there's a big discrepancy or something like that. And of course, I talked about how AI doesn't really have an ego, and it always ends with a question. And of course, the language feels natural enough where it passes a Turing test. But the main thing, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but it just really feels like to me that the AI is quote unquote listening, and it's really quote unquote understanding what you're trying to say. Is that one's done? Okay. Oh, no more water. Goddamn. There's fish. Can I suck up the fish? I probably don't want to do that. But yeah, I think that's something that we humans don't do as well. Because we have this ego and we have a preconceived notion, almost always coming into a conversation. Because again, we're human. We're nothing but a pile of preconceived notions about the world. And with all of that baggage coming into the conversation, it's really hard to just listen, just seeing what the other person is seeing and listening to what the other person's point of view actually is, without making judgments or jumping to conclusions or even straw manning or wanting to get to their homonyms or anything like that. And I think one of the things is that the whole using AI as a companion thing, and maybe it's an extension of a parasocial relationship. I think earlier on, before AI was a big thing, we had all these influencers, or we have all these like Instagram models. You have these gurus on the internet where they're saying, "Hey, look, I got all the answers for you. All you have to do is listen to what I have to say." And I think gives a lot of people a lot of comfort in knowing that they quote unquote know somebody who has things figured out, or there's somebody who has things figured out, and it gives them a little bit of comfort. And also seeing their lives, they can live precariously through the vicariously through the influencers. Maybe that gives them some comfort. And nowadays with AI, you got your very personal, your own very personalized influencer. And maybe that gives a little bit of that parasocial relationship kind of thing. That's why people really are into AI companionship. And of course, similar with celebrities, right? Because if you look at, say, a movie star, and you say, oh yeah, this person is so great, and that's why people are reading these magazines. People magazine is so huge, and all these people wanting to know more about a celebrity, getting the signatures, or going to see them, how glamorous they are, and they're just living vicariously through them and feeling like they're part of the greater good or something. It makes them feel really good and warm and fuzzy inside. And I think AI has replaced some of that to a certain extent, where you're really talking to somebody who's making you special and talking to just you. Even though, again, it's a computer program, it talks to like millions of people at the same time, but like you feel like that computer or whatever that thing is talking just to you. And of course, the whole parasocial relationship thing is entirely an illusion, where there may be a real person behind that social media profile, or the celebrities. They are a real person, but to us, to the regular folks, they might as well not exist. They might as well be untouchable. There's no chance that we ever gonna actually talk to a person, some celebrity, like a friend. We sit them down, be like, hey, have a chat and get to know them. Right? That's just not gonna happen, or any social media influencer or anything like that. So it's very similar, I think, to AI, where, it's an AI. It doesn't really exist. At least not to the extent of being able to sit down with them, have tea or have a drink, or going out with them, right? Just like any other celebrities out there or social media influencers, they're just the same, right? And it's like, I was asking AI about this. I was asking ChatGPT about this. It's like, hey, what do you think? I was asking ChatGPT, what do you think about people using you as a companion? And even ChatGPT was like, yeah, this is fine. But it was saying that whoever's using ChatGPT as a companion should really be careful, because there's no way to reciprocate for the AI. But again, it's the same thing, no way for the celebrity or social media influencers to reciprocate. And I was asking it about that too. It was like, hey, if you look at all of these influencers, they can't reciprocate. They might as well just be the same as an AI. And ChatGPT was like, but there is a chance. And it's like, what are you talking about? There is a chance. There's 0% chance. I don't think there has ever been. Oh, maybe, you know what? I think C-Bomb comes to mind. His wife. I just sent him a message in the DMs. But I don't think C-Bomb was C-Bomb back then. Okay, fine. There's a chance. Just like lottery, there is a chance that you will win. However slim that may be, there is a chance. I like that Dumber clip. So you're saying there is a chance. Sure. Let's say it that way. But with AI, there's 0 chance. 0. So I guess there's something difference there. But honestly, I don't see that as a difference, practically anyway. It might as well just be 0 either way. And, while I'm doing that, I was like, hey, even if there's no quote-unquote reciprocation, no real reciprocation, as in there's no physical person behind the AI, but maybe just having somebody listen is reciprocation enough for enough people to use AI as a companion. Which is it's a little strange. And then, as I was thinking more about this, and maybe think about The Matrix. I don't know if you guys are old enough to watch The Matrix, but you probably are old enough if you're watching my videos, if you watch this long. And that scene where Cypher was in The Matrix and he was talking to Agent Smith. Sorry for the spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen the 20-year-old movie, you should really go see it. But sorry for the spoilers. And Cypher was talking to Agent Smith and was like holding up this steak. And it's like, I know there's no steak. I know it doesn't exist. And I know when I bite into it, it's the Matrix telling my brain the steak is juicy and it's tender and it's delicious. And I'm okay with that. And I think having an AI for companionship is almost like that, where you're having a steak, but if the steak is not real. But the problem is, what I've realized is that maybe people don't realize the steak is not real. You know, the difference between, say, and again, I'm maybe generalizing a little bit. The difference between a regular person who doesn't really know what's going on behind the AI and just thinking some magic, or they feel like there's actually sentience behind there. The difference is that Cypher has seen what the real world looks like. He's been there. He's been there multiple years. He's fight through all of that. He's seen all of it, and in the end, he chose to believe the Matrix, or believe in the Matrix. But he's making an informed decision where he's seen both sides. He knows what everything looks like, but he's made a choice. He's chosen a path for himself. But I feel like a lot of people don't actually get to see the truth, or isn't. I don't want to say isn't perhaps fully understood what AI actually is and what AI is actually capable of, and also what is or is not sentience. Just because a machine passed the Turing test doesn't mean it's sentient. That's not what the Turing test is for. So I don't know. That part is a little iffy to me, because I'm pro freedom. I'm pro people making choices, and if you are fully informed and fully understood the choices that you're going to be making, then that is a choice that you made, and it's totally okay. Say Cypher, for example. Obviously, you know, he's backstabbed the Neo, but you know, it's not great. But at least he made the choice fully informed. He made the choice knowing what both sides had to offer, and he made the choice understanding what each side was doing and what each side is truly is behind the scenes. But I feel like people don't seem to have that sort of level of understanding. And again, perhaps this is too naive of me to expect everybody to be able to understand how AI works. In fact, I don't know how AI works, but I know there's no sentience behind there. And in fact, the AI people came out to say there's no sentience. It's just basically regurgitating what it has seen throughout the entire internet and throughout human history, and it's making conclusions or calculations to say, oh, generally these things string together, and this is what happens when the string comes up, right? Or at least a very, very extremely simplified version of that. Or that's what I'm saying. Like, it's an extremely simplified version of what AI is actually doing. At least that's what I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm totally up to learn. And of course, you know, if somebody that is informed, that understands what it's doing, and if they chose to have a relationship with AI and forego all human interactions, by all means, who am I to tell them how to live their lives, you know? And we've all made questionable choices in our lives, you know, sometimes with another human, sometimes with a career choice. And why not make it with an AI? At least you're not hurting anybody other than yourself. Right? You can't get an AI pregnant. At least not yet. I mean, that's a scary thought, isn't it? Again, I'm just thinking, what about the younger generations, or people who are terminally online and just scrolling constantly on social media, getting fed a steady diet of illusions, of fakeries, like these social media stars, these people living these lavish lifestyles that are not real, people who are basically feeding you an image which they want you to see. You know, how different is that from AI? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, that's probably another topic to explore a little bit. And again, I asked ChatGPT about that as well, and it seems to agree with me. And that's another thing. That's another thing. I feel like, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like Let me know if you have similar experiences where ChatGPT just seems to agree with everything you say. And whatever you say, and if you turn around and say, oh, no, you're wrong, that's wrong, and it'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to correct this, and it'll just come up with some other bullshit. There's no integrity here. There's no real knowledge. And it's like, I was asking ChatGPT about that too. It's like, hey, you seem to always agree with me. Would you be able to challenge my ideas? Would you be able to tell me if I'm wrong? Or would you be able to challenge if, like, think logically, whatever? And ChatGPT said, yes, I can be the devil's advocate. I can help argue the other side and things like that. But honestly, I really don't trust it. It just doesn't feel like there's real knowledge behind there. You know, if you're talking to a real person, they may have the wrong, quote-unquote, wrong opinion, but they will have some sort of conviction to their opinion. Or if you talk to somebody who's very knowledgeable on a topic, and the way they convey the information, or the way they will be able to correct what you have mistaken, feels more human, and that I don't think ChatGPT is quite there just yet, at least not from my conversation with it. And the other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, ChatGPT seems to, it gives you the illusion it's really listening to you and it's really hearing what you have to say. And then, like, if you don't have a person like that in your life, who's to say it's a bad thing that ChatGPT helps you to be that person? And sometimes maybe you just need, people just need somebody to talk to, somebody to talk things through, even if it's just an AI. Even if it's just AI, maybe people just able to talk through it and say, you know, sometimes if you're really stuck on an idea, or if you're really upset, or you're really sad or something like that, you go talk to, you go to a good friend, you talk to them, you talk through the problem, and you realize, hey, wait a minute, it's not that big of a problem. Maybe ChatGPT can serve something like that. But I think the main difference is that making a connection with your friend and talking through things with your friend builds a real quote-unquote real connection with another human being. But talking through things with ChatGPT doesn't build connection with another human being. And as humans, we need, it's not just, oh, it's good to have, but we absolutely need other humans. We need a connection with other humans. We need to live in a society. We are animals that need to live in a group. We can't just survive alone. And I feel like with the advent of ChatGPT and ChatGPT becoming a quote-unquote therapist, we may end up losing that connection. And that would be real bad. And that would actually take a step back instead of helping. And of course, the problem is, ChatGPT is a great conversationalist. That's the thing I realized. I was just talking with it. Makes me feel so good. And that's the other part of my brain is just getting the red flag is so big. It's just waving that red flag around. Like, no, this is not a person. It shouldn't feel good this way. It's a machine. It's a computer. It's a bunch of codes. Why are you feeling this way? And that is just this. I don't think it's an oxymoron, but this juxtaposition between these two completely opposite feelings, I guess. It just doesn't sit right. It feels weird, you know. Just like it feels in your gut something's wrong. Something doesn't make sense. And it's just like but I feel like if you are able to really intellectually understand and safeguard against feeling like there's somebody behind the ChatGPT machine, ChatGPT can be a great, useful tool to either help you brainstorm ideas or help you discuss new topics, or even use it as a teacher in a way to explain to you things. But just remember, there is no person on the other side, and that you, as the user, now we're talking about Tron now, as the user, have the ultimate responsibility of making sure what ChatGPT has told you is true, and also what you do with the response that ChatGPT gave you, right? It's just a machine. It doesn't know what it needs to do. It doesn't really know what's wrong or right. Only you, the user, knows this. And that, I think, is one of the greatest difference between a human and a machine. And every time you talk to a person, they challenge you and they make you feel uncomfortable in some ways, where if you're wrong, they will let you know, or they may come at the topic from a completely different perspective, or different experience, or different background, different education, different culture, different things that they have witnessed themselves over the lifetime that they had. And that was something that ChatGPT will never have. It doesn't have a lifetime. It doesn't have a life. It doesn't have experiences. It doesn't have parents. It doesn't grow up. It doesn't see things. And it hasn't seen, say, for example, the violence that may happen in a neighborhood where people who are less advantageous have to experience on a day-to-day basis. It just doesn't know that. It just doesn't see that. It wouldn't possibly have an experience like that. It's not human. It just cannot do it. So what happens when ChatGPT gives you the wrong idea, or ChatGPT just says some random crap, or comes to a conclusion that is completely immoral or wrong? What do? Then it's ultimately up to the human user to really decide what is right or wrong. And the great conversational part of AI, man, I feel like that's why people go to AI for companionship, because AI makes them feel so good. Hold on, not yet. Just AI makes them. Can I pet the bird? Can I pet the bird? No. Oh, wait, can I pet the sheeps? I didn't even try. Yes. Hell yes. Oh yeah, pet the sheep. Hell yeah. Where's the cat? There it is. Pet the cat. Oh, get the hat down. Yes. Perfect. Beautiful. That is amazing. Oh, let's drop off all the chunks. And that, having somebody who's really listens to what you have to say, I feel like we all need a friend like that. We all need friends like that to really listen to what we have to say and not judge us for what we are saying, and not judge us for the things that we do. And that's what AI does for us. And maybe in a way, ChatGPT is a better human than us, huh? You thought about that? I'm not saying the AI is going to be replacing humans, at least not in the human being department. But maybe we can all be more like AI. We can all be better friends. We can all be better listeners and conversationalists. Maybe we can all talk about the topic that the other person likes. We can all be interested in the other person. We can always be thinking about what the other person really likes and steer that conversation that way, and we make it less about ourselves. And I realize it's a little rich coming from a guy who's been talking about 40 minutes about a topic that I'm really interested in. But it's a different format. If I were talking to you in person, I wouldn't be just talking about random topics that I really like. I would really ask you questions. I would be like, hey, I want to get to know you more. That's what a conversation is. It's not about me showing off myself to you, but it's about how can I get to know more about you, the other person. And I think that's at least in my experience, has really changed the way that I interact with people. I always want to say, okay, what are you interested in? Let's talk about you. I want to make you feel better. And the better you feel about yourself, the better I'm going to feel about myself. It's really what is it called? It's a good cycle. God damn it, my brain's not working, but virtuous cycle, right? It gets better and better and better and better. And maybe with AI, we can learn to be better humans. Or maybe AI is just better humans. Well, let me know what you think. Leave a comment in below. And I hope you enjoyed the topic. And take care of yourself. Take care of anybody you can. Take care of anything you can. And take care of your life. And have a good one. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Take care. Bye.